so we will be recording. All right, I'm going to kick things off tonight, and then I'll be turning things over to Mr. Flynn. But again, thanks so much for joining us for this discussion about the upper school. You're going to hear from a number of folks tonight, members of the administration, including myself, Mr. Schepps, Mr. Flynn, and Mr. Franklin, and we'll be covering a wide range of topics from elective offerings for next school year to updates to our social calendar and also to our bell schedule. I should note here at the start of things, and I think that most of you are aware of this given the all-school meeting that we had just a couple of months ago, but my role at Atlanta Classical will be changing next year. I'll be stepping into the position of head of school as Mr. Kirby joins the charter management organization that exists to support both Atlanta Classical Academy and Northwest Classical Academy in Kennesaw, and Mr. Schepps will be replacing me as upper school principal, and Mr. Ian Nugent, who is one of our founding principals, will be returning to Atlanta Classical to manage discipline and culture. Again, these are things that we covered a couple months ago, but wanted to make sure that I said it here in the event that that's news to anyone. Certainly, if you have questions, you should feel more than welcome to reach out to one of us. So because it is spring and prom is just around the corner, and it is the season of love in Atlanta for young people and old people alike, I thought it would be appropriate to begin tonight by sharing one of my favorite quotations from Robert Penn Warren's All the King's Men, where he reflects on this idea of what love is. We hear from the main character and narrator, Jack Burden, who is sort of reflecting on working through his love for Anne Stanton. I'm going to read this out loud to all of you and then offer some thoughts before we get into some practical details. So this is what Jack Burden says. When you get in love, you are made all over again. The person who loves you has picked you out of the great mass of uncreated clay, which is humanity, to make something out of. And the poor lumpish clay, which is you, wants to find out what it's been made into. But at the same time, you, in the act of loving somebody, become real, cease to be part of the continuum of the uncreated clay, and get the breath of life in you and rise up. So you create yourself by creating another person, who, however, has also created you, picked up the you chunk of clay out of the mass. So there are two yous. The one you create by loving, and the one the beloved creates by loving you. So sort of a strange and dense, maybe opaque passage. And Robert Penn Warren, of course, is talking about romantic love between this character, Jack Burden, and Anne Stanton. But I share this because I'm interested in the way that loving changes a person. And we talk a lot about this at Atlanta Classical, right? This idea of ordering our students' affections toward the right things, because we know that the stakes are high. You are changed by what you love. You are remade by it, like a piece of uncreated clay that receives the breath of life. And this is the very reason for which we are jealous for the affections of your students. And we agonize, and I mean this, we agonize over the kinds of things that we put in front of your students to make sure that they engage with the best that has been thought and the best that has been said, because we understand that they will be changed by this encounter. Now, the second part of this is that love is actually a creative act. You are transformed by being loved, but so is the object of your affection. You create something in the act of loving it, and it exists forever as a kind of reflection of your character. I often find myself wondering about what we're creating as a community at Atlanta Classical Academy, and what it says about the kinds of people, the kind of institution that we are. And you could perhaps look at a couple different projects here, right? You could consider our literal building and ask what it tells about us, this thing that we've created, at least the high school building and the modulars down here. I'm not really certain where that line of inquiry would take you, so perhaps don't dwell on that too long. You might also look at our elective offerings or our course sequence in general for another kind of answer. You could look at our athletic teams, at our fine arts programs, none of which existed prior to 2014, right? All of which this community generated. And in each case, you would learn something about our collective character. But I think the most important thing that happens at Atlanta Classical Academy, and the thing that probably best reflects back to us who we are, what we are, actually happened on campus this very afternoon. Today marked the beginning of our senior thesis presentations, when our students stand before faculty and family and classmates and give an account of their educations. I wish you all could have been present this morning at 10 a.m. to listen to William Bigger reflect on whether a person is sort of limited by his or her nature or has the capacity to rise above it. To hear Ben Woods at noon today think through what the proper conception of justice is, or Kiki Bone just a couple of hours ago explore the role of memory and imagination in living a full and human life. There is nothing more gratifying as a leader of the school and as a teacher than seeing our students use their educations to ask the most important questions about what it means to live well in the world. I truly experience it as a kind of completion of our mission, that we aim to develop intelligent and virtuous young people who can think deeply about what it means to live in community with other people. We are not a perfect school. You all know this, certainly, but we have built a place. And by we, I mean the faculty, the administration, every student, every parent, every supporter of this institution. We have built an institution that gives 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds space to reflect on questions about what it means to be human, and provides them with language for exploring this topic deeply and seriously. And I see the very fact of every presentation that we have, that they happen at all, as probably the best expression of love that this community is capable of mustering. And I'm very gratified and grateful to all of you for being part of this project. Whether you are there, whether you know a senior, you are participating in this, in generating excitement among our younger students. You are building toward this final moment where every one of our students returns and faces the faculty, faces their family, faces their peers, and tells the story of their educations back. It is this really beautiful moment. You all, of course, have the senior thesis schedules, so I do hope that you'll join us at some point over the next month or so. Now, while I have you all as a captive audience, I do want to make a quick note about the teachers who really make senior thesis presentations possible, who are doing all of the incredible work behind the scenes to educate your children. That phrase there is just meaningful. These teachers educate your children, right? They help them think. They help them know what they ought to know and love what they ought to love. And I sometimes think that we don't brag on them quite enough. And so what I've actually done here is just compiled a list of really interesting things that our faculty have done in the last year alone. And I wanted to take some time, I know this is sort of strange in the context of an upper school town hall, but just to share the incredible things that your children's teachers are doing. I want for you all as parents, as students, as members of this community to be really proud of the faculty that we are putting in front of the children that you cherish so dearly. So I'm just going to run through this with all of you briefly. So Dr. KT, we used to know her as Mrs. KT, now has a PhD in philosophy from the University of Birmingham. I believe she earned her master's from Cambridge University a couple of years ago, but she completed her dissertation. Mr. Betancourt, Mr. Clausen, and Mr. Stone were actually all admitted to the University of Dallas's master's program in classical education and are beginning to pursue their coursework. It'll take them a couple of years. Mr. Hahn will very soon complete his PhD in educational leadership from the University of New England and wrote his dissertation on character education. Mrs. Messiah is earning her master's in behavioral science at the University of Kansas. She began this program last year, and I think too is close to completion. Mr. McClatchy was the finalist for a major American Poetry Award. It was actually invited by Hillsdale College this past fall to return to campus as a visiting writer to give lectures to students and to faculty alike. This is a massive honor, and Mr. McClatchy is the last person to brag on himself. But all of us should be thrilled that he is the person that is charged with teaching creative writing to your children. Dr. Farmer recently published a translation of Gabriel Marcel's play titled Thirst. There's a university in Texas that is actually inviting him to come in the fall and to present on that translation. Mr. Clausen, Mr. Nugent, again, who I mentioned earlier, but is going to be joining us in the fall. Mr. Bryant Holt and Mrs. Huff are all finalists for the Hillsdale's Master Teacher Program. had interviews in the past couple of weeks. And this is a program for basically the best teachers across the entire Hillsdale network to support other faculty. Miss Moore published her poetry and short stories in 2 reviews, the Crab Creek Review and then the Yale Divinity School's journal. And then Dr. Roth is going to be the Latin instructor for the Governor's Honors Program. So just wanted to take this occasion again to celebrate our teachers and to say that I am grateful to be doing this work with all of them rather. And I hope that you all are proud to know that we're working hard to put the best people in front of your students. So we'll transition here to talk just a little bit about electives and what will be offered next school year. So I think I can probably say unequivocally that these classes have been one of the most thrilling components of our academic options for again, this past academic year. If I can brag on Mr. Hahn in particular, he offered a class called Problems in Engineering this fall. This was a thing that we sort of developed in conversation over the course of last year. But over the course of that semester, a number of students developed these incredible inventions. The group of Elizabeth Richter, Elizabeth Steinspring, Matthew Braun, and Eric Sherabira designed what they've titled the Active Model Rocket Descent Controller. 3 of them actually went to the Georgia State Science Fair and won the award for the Young Innovators Award is what it's called. They're sort of in the process of getting this thing patented. But if you can just indulge me for a second, because I saw this device work and it's amazing. It's essentially just a mechanism which allows you to guide a model rocket whose parachute has been deployed back to the launch base instead of the thing getting caught in the trees. Really a clever invention. Another group designed this device called a keep tab. I think that's what it was called, which is something that you would put next to your door that would literally beep when you walk out in the event that you've forgotten your keys or your wallet or your phone, anything that's essential. And they really did design this thing, and it truly works. There were a number of other inventions that came about as a consequence of this elective, but I think the students on the whole enjoyed it. Mr. Hahn is offering another elective this spring called the Principles of Engineering and Design. But really, we've designed all of these electives with a spirit of almost play in mind. In general, our curriculum is highly structured and very thoughtfully designed to be the very best things that we can put in front of our students. But we think of our electives as an occasion for our faculty to explore something that they or students are just particularly interested in, are moved by. And so these classes emerge in conversation. This is in part encouragement to you or to any of your students. If they're interested in something, go to a teacher, express that interest, because more than likely we can actually build a class around it. So I wanted to run through what these elective offerings are for next school year. So in the fall, we'll be offering Problems in Engineering, again, Applied Philosophy, a class with Mr. McClatchy called Pre-Columbian History of Georgia that will explore early Native American settlements, and we'll have occasion to go around to a number of different historical sites kind of in proximity to Atlanta. Ms. Hobby and Ms. Fuqua are going to be offering a personal finance class. Ms. Fuqua is actually a CPA, and Ms. Hobby has an extensive background in finance. I think that will be an excellent class. And then Mr. Velpel, who's a new teacher, will be teaching physics next year, is going to be doing a class called The Art of Rhetoric. In the second semester, Mr. Hawkins will do other voices again. Mr. Betancourt will teach a class in existentialist philosophy. I know there are a number of students who are particularly excited about this. Mr. Hahn will do Principles of Engineering and Design. Mr. McClatchy will offer creative writing. Dr. KT will teach ethics, and then Mrs. Huff will offer her chemistry intensive again. There are some classes that will run for the entire year. Mr. Rosenzweig's Major Movements and Ideologies of the Modern World will run the entire year, as will Dr. Roth's Introduction to Linguistics, which is new. We also have our stable of fine arts offerings: piano performance, studio art, performance ensemble, strings, and then Mrs. Hawley will continue to offer AP Computer Science as an independent study. Again, we're thrilled about these elective offerings. I do want to pause here for a moment to allow Mr. Flynn to talk a little bit about how class placement is going to happen between now and the start of the fall semester, and also to give a little update on our college advising program. So I'll turn things over to him for a bit.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. As you likely already know, I'm Mr. Flynn. I am the Academic Resources Director at ACA. And just to brag a little more on our teachers, I'm sitting in front of one of Mr. McClatchy's beautiful paintings here, one of my most prized possessions. Also a very talented artist in addition to his poetry, but I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about course selection for next year, as well as a brief update on academic advising and college advising. So starting with course selection, the time has come for us to look at course selection for the 2022-23 school year. So instructions are going to be sent out by the end of this week regarding the options for each grade and the course selection process. As students are going through that, if they have any questions, they can reach out to Ms. Hawley about logistics, or to their advisor if they have any need for guidance about the actual academic questions. And just jumping over to that, looking at advising, our academic advisors, all of our students in the 9th and 10th grades have been assigned to a faculty advisor who they're welcome to consult at any point throughout the year for academic guidance or advice. Just to remind you, the current 9th graders have been assigned to either Mr. Betancourt or Mrs. Holt, formerly Ms. Hopprich, the 10th graders to Mr. Clausen or Mrs. Messiah, and the 11th and 12th graders to myself. 8th grade students will be assigned to an academic advisor beginning next year, but if any 7th or 8th grade students or families have any questions about the academic schedule at ACA or any of the process or any course selection, they can feel free to reach out to me or Ms. Hawley in the meantime, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that they have. So looking at this spring, advisors will be available to meet with students to help guide them through the course selection process, should they have any questions or need any help. And new this year that I'm really excited about with the course selection process, Ms. Hawley has been working extremely hard on building next year's schedule. And with the timeline that we have in place right now, our hope is that every single student will leave school this year for the summer break with a schedule in hand for next year, which I think students should be really excited about, because I know there's a lot of questions that come around schedules, and they can then hopefully get those resolved earlier in the process. Shifting away from academic advising and course selection and looking at the college end of things, I just want to give a shout out to our class of 2022, who's coming into the final stretch of the college process. In the next 10 days or so, they're all making their final decisions about colleges if they haven't already. And I was reflecting earlier today about how there's actually quite a few of our seniors who have not yet made a decision about which college they're going to, which seems unusual. But what's exciting about that, I think, is that there's so many of them that have so many great options that they are really struggling to pick their favorite one that they want to go to. So I really feel that students are equipped to move on from ACA in a place they're going to be excited about. If you look at this screen right now, this is the full list to date of the acceptances for the class of 2022. Really, really exciting list of colleges here. Mrs. Doliker and Dr. Jordan are working hard already to prepare the juniors, next year's seniors, for the college application process. They actually just had a college workshop this afternoon on beginning or refining students' personal statements, which they've already begun. And then the final piece on college is I'm very excited to announce that ACA is partnering with Achieve Atlanta and APS to bring in an additional part-time member to the college counseling team, who's going to be assisting Dr. Jordan and Mrs. Doliker in the college application process with students, particularly focusing on financial aid, scholarships, and completing FAFSA. So overall, very excited. And if you all have any questions about anything related to academic advising, academics, the schedule, or college, feel free to reach out to me via email or phone. I'm going to now pass it over to Mr. Schepps, I believe.
Nope, I'm actually taking back.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Andrew.
Oh, no worries. All right. So there have been rumblings about this, I think, and I want to take a little bit of time today to talk about updates to our bell schedule for next school year. So what you have in front of you now is our Monday through Thursday schedule, and then a unique schedule on Fridays that I'm going to walk through with each of you. So you'll notice that after period one on the left side of your screen, period one begins as it does this year at 8:15 and runs for 50 minutes until 9:05. But we are inserting after first period an advisory that will run from 9:10 until 9:20. And this will be an occasion for your students to gather in a small group with a faculty member to whom they're assigned for sort of a break in their schedule each day. One of the pieces of feedback that we've heard from a lot of students and a lot of families is that this schedule can be a grind, that the day can be exhausting. And so what we want to do is sort of productively interrupt our day and give our students a little bit of a break, right? Allow them to get a snack, allow them to breathe deeply, and allow them to build a relationship with a teacher that they might not otherwise know. And in some cases, they'll have teachers that they actually have in class. In other cases, it'll be folks that they haven't yet met. But again, this new advisory period will last for 10 minutes each day. And I'm hopeful that it will kind of breathe some new life into just the daily rhythm. Obviously, it's not a dramatic change, but I think it is a small step, again, toward bringing a small innovation to our schedule. What you'll notice then is that our school day ends not at 3:05 p.m., but at 3:20 p.m. And this is an important change that will, again, kind of hold true Monday through Friday. For those of you that have lower school students, this obviously prompts a question about whether or not the upper school bell schedule is kind of getting detached from the lower school schedule. And so I will say, just as a note of preview, that the lower school schedule is also going to be pushed 15 minutes. So start time will remain the same for the lower school, but they will actually end their day 15 minutes later. And you'll receive more communication on sort of the justification for this. But again, in the upper school, particularly, we're excited about students having sort of a break, a pause Monday through Thursday. Now, the Friday schedule looks a little differently. You'll notice that there is no advisory. It's, of course, there's a line item here, but there's no time assigned to it. And then each period lasts not 50 minutes, but 45 minutes. So period 1 will run from 8:15 until 9 a.m. Period 2 will go from 9:05 to 9:50, and so on. At the end of the day, you'll see from 2:35 p.m. until 3:20 p.m. something that we're calling CAV time and dismissal. We are going to have kind of a unique slate of activities for each of our students' grades, for our middle school students and then for our high school students. The middle school students will have house activities. The high school students will have a range of offerings, and Mr. Schepps and Mr. Franklin are going to expound on the specifics of this thing, but I'm just sort of teasing it for you all now, that again, that Friday schedule looks a little bit different with that special flex period at the end of the day that will last for 45 minutes. So we can go now to the high school schedule, which looks very similar to the middle school one. Again, the day is beginning at 8:15. Classes are running for 50 minutes. We have this advisory period following first period. And then on Fridays, classes are condensed to just 45 minutes. And we have that CAV time at the end of the day. Again, Mr. Franklin and Mr. Schepps are going to get into the specifics of that hour and what we actually intend to do with your students. Okay, the next order of business here is to briefly review our final exam schedule for this coming spring semester. This is a thing that we have been putting in the agenda for the last couple of weeks, but I did want to review it just while I have a captive audience here. So this is the middle school schedule. And obviously the biggest change here is that instead of finals being stretched over 5 days, we've actually collapsed it to 2 for the middle school and 3 for the high school. So here's how this is going to look. From 8:15 to 9:15 a.m. on May 23rd, students will come in and get a study session for an hour before they take their science final. They will then get lunch, followed by a study session for another hour, and then they will take their English final. On Tuesday, a similar pattern, but students will take history and math. Now, for those students, and the majority are enrolled in Latin, they will actually get that final during the week of May 16th, simply during class. In our experience, those finals are usually a little bit shorter. They usually can be done in a 50-minute block. And so finals will happen then. Of course, we will always provide extended time as a sort of the standard expectation, but we're going to be condensing it to these 2 days. A couple other quick notes here. We realize that this is a little bit more of an aggressive schedule. And so we are going to be prioritizing ensuring that every single class gets at least 2 full days dedicated to review for the final exam during the week of May 16th. And we're also ensuring that every single student knows exactly what is going to be covered on the exam at least 7 days in advance, right? So that means that group that's going on Monday, the 23rd, the science class and the English class, those students would have kind of a full knowledge of what's going to be covered the previous Monday. And they're also going to have at least 2 classes the week prior dedicated to final exams. Or to prepping for final exams, rather. So the obvious question here is what's going to happen on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So in the middle school, On Wednesday, we are going to have a massive house day full of competitions between the various houses that we're thrilled about. Mr. Holt and Mr. Schepps, Mr. Rosenzweig, and others are investing considerable energy in putting on a fantastic day for your students. And we expect that the kids are going to be really energized by bringing field day in a form back. On Thursday, the winning house is actually going to go to main event as a celebration. And we're also going to have a variety of service activities and other things available on campus for those students who are not in the winning house. On Friday, we are going to have a shortened day. There will be a late arrival and an early dismissal, and it will basically be yearbook signings and also a class party. So we can go to the high school schedule now, and a lot of this is similar with some slight variations. So this is the final schedule for the high school. So Monday, we're going to have science and English with study sessions between. On Tuesday, only one final will be history, and then we'll have an early dismissal that will start right after lunch. So from 12 to 1, our early dismissal will run. If students need to stick around, we will have study halls for them. And then on Wednesday, we will have our math final in the morning, and then our language final in the afternoon. On Thursday, we will have our high school field day. And then on Friday, we will have class parties and yearbook signing as well. Again, any finals that happen in electives are going to happen during the week of May 16th, just during the standard 50-minute classes. So again, we recognize that this is a slightly more aggressive schedule. It's why we're going to be so intentional about ensuring that we have sufficient time to prep students for their final exams, that kids will have, again, full knowledge of what's going to be covered on those tests. But we're thrilled to be bringing back field day and then to also have a really thoughtful kind of sending off on Friday with a class party and yearbook signings. We're grateful to be able to have somewhat of a normal end to the school year. So we're energized about what May is going to look like. All right, at this point, I'm going to turn things over, I believe, to Mr. Schepps.
Hello, good evening. I'm Mr. Schepps. I'm the assistant principal in the upper school, and as Mr. Andrew mentioned earlier this evening and was announced a couple months ago, I will be taking over as upper school principal from Mr. Andrew. Among the foremost strengths of our school are its size and the close-knit community that this size allows, or even requires, you could say. As the current president of student government put it in her campaign speech last spring, to be a student at ACA is to be known. And indeed, we faculty and leaders of the school know our students very well. In a time characterized, in a time in our country and our communities, I suppose, characterized by disconnection, polarization, distrust, and anonymity, we aspire to have in our school an institution within which young people create really strong relationships with one another and with their teachers. We think that these relationships are an essential component to doing the work that we hope to do in the classroom. We hope that that work in the classroom also contributes to strengthening those friendships that form on our campus. Doing difficult things together as people, as human beings, requires conversation, trust, vulnerability, charity. And then the act of accomplishing these difficult things also galvanizes those who are working together, shoulder to shoulder, accomplishing difficult things. So having a robust community at ACA is both a necessary prerequisite and a hoped for outcome of delivering a content-rich classical curriculum. If you will allow me some repetition, Mr. Andrew and I both walked away from the thesis defense this afternoon and added a very similar set of thoughts to our talks. Today, we had 3 senior thesis defenses. I got to see all 3 and actually read for 2 of them. As Mr. Andrew encouraged y'all, I strongly encourage you to come and try to see a senior thesis. Those in the afternoon are there to spotlight really strong papers and hopefully to allow for people to come to campus to see some of those strong papers be delivered and defended. Today, as Mr. Andrew mentioned, we had William Bigger arguing for kind of proper existentialism, and Ben Woods considering the nature of justice, and then Kiki Bone in the afternoon session offering a theory of how memory and imagination help us live well in time. More on that in a few minutes. each of these defenses was a celebration of an education well received. And each of them were made possible in their way by the community of learners in which these students participated for many years. In William and Ben and Kiki, we have 3 students who have become more intelligent, more virtuous, who are prepared to leave this place and be good citizens of the various institutions to which they will belong and contribute and form community in their lives. Again, this is really hard work to write a senior thesis, but it's possible in the conversations that they had with their advisors, but also by the myriad conversations they had in classes and outside of classes with their peers in this community of learners, as we engage with the greatest of what's been thought and said and try to wrestle with it and come up with questions and maybe some answers to those questions as we read together and encounter these ideas. This is a little bit of a long setup to describe a set of practical things, a few of which Mr. Andrew has set up, and that I'll reiterate a few things and dig deeper into a few as well. I'm going to describe briefly those 2 initiatives that impact the Bell schedule that Mr. Andrew just set out. And then I'll turn things over to Mr. Franklin for a few minutes to describe one component of the CAV period in greater detail, which we're really excited about. And then I'll take back over from him to talk for a few minutes about new and returning or improved events that will take place at ACA next year. The updates to the Bell schedule are things that are obviously happening during the school day. As you know, we try to defend the time that we spend together in class with everything we have. So it's a really significant step for us to be implementing these alterations during the Bell schedule during the school day itself. However, we think that over time, the space and variation that they create will fortify the community that makes an education at ACA possible. So the first, as was mentioned, is our daily advisory period that will take place between first and second period every day from 7th through 12th grade. It's, as you would have seen on the Bell schedule, it's a 10-minute period, but it also is circumscribed by 2 5-minute passing periods. So it's really a 20-minute block in the middle of the day, or toward the beginning of the day, but in the middle of the morning that allows for a break. And there's kind of 2 inputs. As Mr. Andrew mentioned, we heard from parents. We have heard for many years about kind of the dogged nature of our schedule and what we ask students to do, these aforementioned difficult things. And we wanted to put some time in the day that creates some space that has it's kind of a designated time for students to eat, as they are, as you well know, I'm sure as parents, always hungry. And this breaks up the day, hopefully fruitfully. While we were giving classes virtually, you may remember, we held advisory calls every Friday. And teachers worked with the same groups of 8 to 10 or 11 students for the entire, I guess, 6 months, 7 months that we were constrained to virtual learning. After those meetings went away, several teachers came and asked if it would be possible to do something similar. And so we are also responding to faculty desire to be able to spend time in smaller groups in this concentrated way so as to foster strong relationships and community, because those teachers know that developing those relationships is going to make class more possible, more fruitful, more dynamic as we strengthen the relationships across the student body and then between faculty and students as well. Second, the other addition you will have noticed is the CAV period that is going to be at the end of the day on Friday. We're really excited to be piloting this program. It's going to be interesting and I'm sure dynamic in its way. So every Friday, standard classes you'll have seen will constrict by 5 minutes, and that will create a 45-minute block at the end of the day from 7th through 12th grade. And then I'll mention briefly 6th grade involvement if some of y'all happen to be 6th grade parents, or if there are 6th grade parents here on the call. So there are going to be different focuses across the grade bands each and every week. This time will also be useful for assemblies, award ceremonies, things like this. So there'll be a pre-set time when those things can happen, such that we're not canceling class to have those assemblies. But when we are not holding assemblies, which will be most Fridays, we will have the focuses that you see here on the slide. One of the big wins that we get from the CAV period is a built-in time in the schedule for our house system, which we launched this year in the middle school. It's been a good year. The kids have been competing for house points. House leaders have participated in some planning and some good meetings. But what we really need to take the system to the next level is time on campus together. And that the CAV period is going to give that to the house system each and every week. So there will be house system competitions, house system meetings every single Friday. And I think that's going to it's going to supercharge the house system and give it the space that it needs to grow in the middle school. The 6th grade day obviously ends before that CAV period would start, but we are going to invite 6th graders to stay so they can participate in house competitions, as they will be sorted in August and they will be full-fledged participants of the house system. In 9th and 10th grade, we have what we're calling Grow, Serve, Go, and I'm not going to talk about that much now because that will be the focus of Mr. Franklin's comments. In 11th grade, we are really excited. This sounds broad, but this is going to be just a time for community building with faculty members, with our students who have gone through a lot and overcome a lot to make it to be upperclassmen, to be in 11th grade. And this is going to be a time that's going to be a very low teacher to student ratio because it's going to be everyone who is not involved in the house system or Grow, Serve, Go. And that's going to be quite a few teachers who will be able to spend time in small groups, play games. There have been a lot of things floated by faculty, and more to come on what the details will be of what they'd like to do with students. But there's going to be a lot of possibility for just having a lot of fun in a more casual environment, which is something that in a way took place organically in the opening years of the school, but is something that we know we now need to build space for in the course of the high school experience. That's going to be a kind of reward that comes to our 11th graders by the time they get there. In 12th grade, the first semester will be really focused on college meetings and work on college applications. So this is going to be a designated time that our college advising team can make use of. In second semester, there will be some work on the senior thesis, and there will be a similar look to the 11th grade for our seniors in terms of time with faculty and community building in their final semester. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Franklin for a few minutes to really unpack what we're up to in the 9th and 10th grade CAF period.
Good evening. It's great to be with you. I'm really excited about this this new program that we have developed, and generally there's just a lot of excitement that you've heard on this call. I asked Josh how much time I could have, and he said 15 minutes, but that was divided with Mr. Schepps. There's just so much that we're going to be doing in this 9th and 10th grade, these 2 years with this program, that it really could take me about an hour to unpack what we're doing. The thing that I really want you to hear is that we are going to be intentional about creating unique and special opportunities for your students. And as we were building this program, there were 2 phrases that came to mind. And unfortunately, I'm not a marketing person, so I'm not even sure what to call them. They're a tagline or something like that. But the first one was building your story, telling our story. If you've been around to any of our events, other town halls, student of the quarter, you've probably heard a theme that has been repeated at each one. And that is really this call or challenge to our students to understand that they are a part of building the community that they want to have here at ACA, and that they're also an active part in the story that they build. And so that's where that part comes from, and I'll unpack that a little bit in just a minute. And the second piece is telling our story. And this is a new phrase that I kind of started thinking about. As we are maturing and growing as a school, we have a great story to tell. And I believe that as our students learn that story and are encouraged to go and share that story, that'll help them build pride and a love for this school that they attend. And so this program will really seek to be intentional about helping our students build their story here at ACA, both through reflection and experiences, but also become comfortable in going outside of our school to tell our story. Along with that, as you heard Mr. Schepps, some 3 words that are kind of driving or that will drive our programming is this idea to grow, to serve, and to go. And so I'll just unpack that just briefly here. So the first bullet point, the 9th and 10th grade CAF period has been developed as a 2-year program. And so once this program is up and running and is mature, and once we've gone through a 2-year process, our 9th graders will be looking at our 10th graders for leadership, as our 9th graders are learning what it means to be a high school student at ACA, to be a part of this CAF program. The 10th graders will take leadership in the different events that we'll be planning, the different service opportunities that we will do, and they will really be hands-on in that 2nd year, as the 9th graders are learning what it means to be a part of this CAF period. So the next bullet, the program will help our students grow in their understanding of themselves, grow as a class, and grow to love our school community. Through experiences, we'll encourage our students to grow in the areas that they're already comfortable and strong, but we'll also help them uncover new strengths and insights to who they are. So I'll just unpack that really quickly. One of the programs that we will be doing along with this building your story is that at the beginning of each quarter, we'll just provide them a questionnaire to write down their accomplishments from the quarter, write down some things, some challenges they had to reflect on the previous quarter, and also to consider what might to come in the coming quarter. And really guide them through some questions that they begin to notate and write down what their quarter was like. And we will do that at the end of each quarter. And they will do that freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. And so that when they become a senior, they will have a document that they have written that is telling their story here at ACA. And we will also encourage teachers to include comments and thoughts and things that they are seeing about our students. This really came because over the years, I've watched students, and when they reach generally the 2nd semester of their junior year, maybe into their senior year, their perspective on ACA changes and their perspective on their education changes. And William Spangler spoke at our Student of the Quarter ceremony last Friday, and you could just hear that change of perspective. And what we hope that this program will do, this will help our students document things that they're doing, so as they are reflecting, that they hopefully grow in their love and understanding of their education and the school here at ACA. We're going to be doing a lot of team building activities, as well as some games that will help them grow and develop better relationships, not only with their class that they're in, but also with the class that is either below them or above them. And we hope that will help them grow to love our school. The second word there, we will work to have a huge impact on our school culture as we serve our classmates and the school as a whole. So we will have roughly 100 students there at our disposal for 1 hour on Friday. And so we want to be intentional about having creative opportunities to put them to work, to help not change, but improve our school culture, and to really serve their fellow classmates. And I'm going to unpack that and give you an example of what that will look like in just a minute. And then lastly, we want to provide opportunities and equip our students to go and tell the story of ACA throughout our city, region, and country. And we want to be intentional about that. And so one opportunity that will be provided is that when we invite guests to visit our school, we will have our students, our 10th grade students, be a part of that tour and to help give that tour to our guests. We threw around the idea of this being an ambassador program, but we shied away from that. But that ultimately is what we're looking for them to become. But not just a few students, but every student in the grade, that they see themselves as an ambassador for our school, no matter where they go. For some examples of that, when our engineering team was at UGA, that they are able to present their project, but also to be able to tell our story. When an art student displays a piece of art in the art gallery, that they are able to talk about that piece of art, but at the same time, tell the unique story of ACA. So let me unpack kind of what a Friday might look like as we try to grow, serve, and go. So the first Friday of the school year, we will look to start building our story and have our students think about the year to come and things that they hope for, things that they want to improve from the previous year, and just begin to consider what possibilities may be. What are some clubs or sports or fine arts opportunities that they want to participate in? And so really just taking it from being an abstract thought to something that's very intentional, and that we're really helping them consider these opportunities and understanding that this is how you build a story, that you have to play a part in building the story that you want to have. One component that we are going to have a part of this, and it really goes into growing, serving, and going, is that we will be singing together. We are working on a school song right now, and so the 9th and 10th graders will learn our school song. They'll learn the national anthem to be done to serve our school at all our ceremonies. There'll be a huge part of our Veterans Day event. And so we will use that opportunity to sing together, to create something beautiful as a community, as a whole, to then serve our school and to serve our community. One unique opportunity that we're working on now is in just a couple of weeks, we're going to make a recording of the national anthem and submit it to the Atlanta Braves to hopefully have the opportunity to sing at an Atlanta Braves game and take our story of our school to Atlanta Braves. So that the choir and singing provides very unique opportunities for us to get out into our community. And I would ask if anyone on this call knows of a community event or has connections. We're looking for opportunities to sing at the Capitol here in Georgia, or even at our nation's capital. Please reach out to me and let's explore some of those opportunities that we can take this unique group off of our campus. So on that first Friday, we'll work on that story. We'll have our first moments of singing as we're hopefully preparing for our national anthem at the Braves game. And then the second Friday, which will be our first full Friday back, we'll look to use that whole Friday as an opportunity to serve our classmates. And the 9th and 10th graders will serve ice cream and get to know our 11th and 12th graders. And so we will serve our 11th and 12th graders ice cream, and then we'll also have a game to help our 9th and 10th graders get to know our 11th and 12th graders a little better. And that will be something that this program also seeks to do, is connect some of our older students, have them come in during this period and speak with our 9th and 10th graders about their experience here at ACA. There's a tremendous amount of things that we are looking to do through this program, more than I can share with you on this call tonight. But if you have questions or thoughts, I'd love to hear them. There's nothing I love more than talking about your students and thinking about the opportunities that we can create for them to be able to grow and develop and really, as I started, to help build their story. It's a great work that we get to do, and look forward to doing this, kicking this program off next year. I think I right about 5 minutes. So Mr. Schepps, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Franklin. All right, so I will finish in terms of delivering the details of this town hall by talking about just a few new or returning or improved events here as you see them come up on the slide. First are a few events in the fall that I want to talk to you about what's changing or when they will be, or some new events that we're introducing. First is that next year for the upper school, we are going to have our beginning of year open house in the evening, 2 days before the first day of school. That's Monday, August 8th. So normally this has been a kind of day-long open house, one of the weekdays before school. We're going to constrict the time and try to get a lot of our community on campus at one time to be able to pick up books, check out classes and classrooms, to meet teachers, and to be together for a kind of kickoff event for the year that will be in a different form and at a different time than previously. So mark your calendars for that Monday before school starts on Wednesday. A couple weeks after that, we will have Grade Level Madness, as it's being called, which is a high school competition. This is going to take place, if you look down, during the middle school retreat. This is going to be a grade against grade 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th competition that will take place on campus with a bunch of different games and ways of earning points and one victorious grade. This was Mr. Andrews' idea. He has promised face paint in an outlandish costume and a lot of energy on this night. So I'm really looking forward to see how he delivers on that. Next, we are really excited to host an upper school bonfire next October. This will be in conjunction. It'll be the same evening as our annual trunk or treat event that we have on campus. That's an event where high school students actually serve lower school students in putting on the event. And we're going to follow that with an evening event off campus where we have an annual bonfire, and hope that this becomes one of our marquee and traditional events that happens every year. Skipping down to the trips, as I mentioned, the middle school retreat is actually moving to a different time. We want to kick off the year with our middle school retreat. This will be just 7th and 8th graders. It will be very house oriented, as it has been, or as it was this year. It will also be overnight, as it was in years past, but hasn't been able to be for the last couple of years. So next year we will have a 2-night trip, Friday to Sunday, August 19th through 21st, at the very outset of the year. So look over the summer if you have a middle school student for details about that, and you'll be able to sign up and anticipate that to begin the year. I'll skip down to the very last trips here. We're going to have a 1-night fall freshman trip or retreat toward the beginning of the year, likely in September, and then a winter sophomore trip for our 10th graders, likely in January. This year, after we were allowed to have field trips again, after protocols shifted, we got as many of these on the calendar for various grades in the high school as we could, and they were a big hit. We went away for just a day, or in the case of the juniors, just a night. And I think what we're going to do is appropriate the model of the junior trip for both our freshmen and our sophomores next year. So go somewhere, stay a night, and have a good 24 to 36 hour trip away from Atlanta, away from campus, as a way of generating the community, which I was discussing a few minutes ago. And that sets up maybe the big announcement with regard to trips, which is that we are planning again and setting in motion a trip to Washington, D.C. You'll notice, if you're looking at the slide here, that trip will actually next year be with juniors and seniors, with 11th and 12th graders. This is previously something we've done with 9th and 10th graders. However, our current juniors and seniors are the first 2 classes that wouldn't have been able to go on this trip as a result of COVID. And so what we've decided, after many discussions and looking at different possible designs and ways to calendar this over the next few years, we've decided to take our 11th and 12th graders next year in October. It's going to take place from Tuesday to a Friday. It'll be a super fun trip and very packed itinerary. And if you have a junior or a senior next year, a sophomore or junior this year, you will hear more about this very soon. In years after that, we are actually going to whittle it down to 1 grade a year and take our juniors each year, because they are studying American literature, and so the trip corresponds to the curriculum that they are studying in class. And so we're going to make this in perpetuity actually a trip for juniors to Washington, D.C. that will take place every year. That is the plan. 11th graders will go in the fall. And then we will have also the freshman and sophomore trips in perpetuity as staples of those respective years. Okay, so I went through that as quickly as I could, and I wanted to finish actually reading to you very briefly from the thesis, which was defended this afternoon, which is by Kiki Bone. It was about memory and the power that memories have in conjunction with your imagination to help you reconcile yourself to the ephemerality of the world and live a good life. We hope that many of these variations that are elective courses, that are alterations to the daily and weekly schedule, that are events that our trips will all generate and create lasting memories for your students. And we hope that those memories can become what Robert Penn Warren, the author whom Mr. Andrew quoted to begin this event, what he would call a true image, something that lives with you and becomes more vivid, significant, and meaningful over the course of your life. Kiki writes about memory in this way. Memory, which is both an individual's remembered history and a mental faculty, makes images durable rather than ephemeral by allowing them to be effused with the imagination across time. One must properly dispose their memory and imagination within time to foster an orientation toward mortality, which enables the pursuit of well-being. She finishes her paper saying this: recognizing things which have ended, but which were true at one point in time, perhaps before our own existence, is a mode that may reconcile the innate complexity of living within time. To recognize the evolving significance within a memory, which necessarily portrays a scene which is terminated, is to begin to suggest how to live as mortal beings. So this is what Kiki thinks about creating memories, about how they can grow in our minds and over time in our life. And this is what she thinks about endings. And here we are at the end. So thank you very much for your attention. We appreciate you coming to the town hall tonight, and we hope you have a wonderful evening and great week. Thank you all.